older stuff that makes me cringe.
Back when I was a younger lad, there wasn't as many painted covers as there is now. And the one guy that you saw his work was the guy I'm lucky enough to be talking to now, Joe Jusko. How's it going, Joe?
Good, thank you very much.
It's weird because now painted covers are kind of commonplace. It's not every cover, but when you started, you were like pretty much the first guy out of the gate. Do you feel you had a little bit more lee room than you might have if you were coming in now?
Well, I broke into business in, I guess, 1978, and there were very few guys doing painted work in comics. It was like the start of the painted comic book boom. And Marvel still had their black and white magazines going, so they had Bob Larkin and Earl Norem doing covers. So I got really lucky. I was really young. I was 18 years old and had no idea what I was doing. But because there were so few guys doing painted work in comics back then, I was able to kind of learn while I worked, which was great. You're right, there were so many guys doing painted work today that if I broke in today knowing what I knew then, I wouldn't get any work. But the timing was perfect for me.
Now, right now, you seem to be doing a lot of work on Burroughs-based covers, like Tarzan and the Warlords of Mars characters,
right.
And you do a great job. Is there a reason why you feel you have do you have an affinity for those characters, or was it something you grew up with?
Yeah, it's a property that I've loved since I was a child. I read the Mars books actually before I read the Tarzan books.
Oh, really?
And because I always thought the Tarzan books were going to be stupid because I grew up on Johnny Weissmuller movies.
Yeah,
and that's what I thought Tarzan was about. And so just based on the science fiction aspect and the monsters and all that kind of cool stuff, I read the Mars books. So I know the books inside and out, and I reread them again. I read all the Burroughs books actually about 20 years ago when I did the card set for FPG. So I know the properties really well, and when Dynamite called and asked me if I would do the covers, I jumped at the opportunity because it's just something that I always felt I wanted to come back to and add more to as far as the canon of illustration that has preceded me with it.
Who wins in a fight, Tarzan or John Carter?
Well, it depends on where they're fighting. If they're fighting on Mars, I would have to say John Carter.
Yeah, I guess there is that technicality. Because I was the opposite. I grew up on Tarzan, and then, oh, wait, he wrote this other series like years and years later, and I went back and fell in love with that series of books a little bit more.
Yeah.
One of the things I've got to ask is our regular readers and viewers know is I'm a big wrestling fan. Mm-hmm. And you did a fair amount of work back in the 80s for the WWF, now WWE.
Yeah.
I've heard stories about your involvement with the design of The Undertaker, but I've never heard the clear word from your mouth.
Okay.
Would you mind giving us what the job was and
Sure.
what ended up being part of your concept and what they used and what they didn't?
Sure. I was contacted in 91 or 92 to paint the advertising posters for the Royal Rumble in 91. And then they came back again in 92. I did the 92 Royal Rumble, and I believe WrestleMania 7. It's a big Hulk Hogan painting of
with
him holding
the American flag in the background.
That was everywhere. I mean, it was on all the cable bills. It was a 40-foot billboard in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
It went all over the place. And the art director at the time, Bill Thrash at the WWF, said they were conceiving a new wrestler called The Undertaker, and they wanted my concept on what The Undertaker would look like. So I did a few concept designs for it. Basically, it was a little bit more of a Western-type Undertaker type thing, where he had more of a stovepipe hat, but he had the long coat with the cut-off sleeves and everything. Okay. So I sent the designs in, and they tweaked them a bit, and ended up coming up with the Amish hat and the zombie-looking type guy. So they made him a little bit more unearthly than I originally designed him, but I had the sleeveless long coat and the Undertaker's coat and stuff like that. So I did the initial designs for the Undertaker.
So a lot of what you did ended up in the half and half.
Yeah, they tweaked it. They took the general concept and tweaked it to what they decided to use later on.
Awesome. Well,
it's kind of cool.
It's one of those, and it's one of those characters that keeps coming back, and everybody. To a credit to that design on wrestling boards, every time he's going to appear at WrestleMania, they keep hoping that it'll go all the way back to the old one.
Yeah. So it's really amazing. He's one of the few guys from that period who's still around, right?
Yeah,
they're either all dead or retired.
He's on his last legs, but he's still kicking it. Before we go, where can people find more of your stuff? Do you have a website running with a store and everything? Or?
Yeah, there's joejusko.com is my website, easy to remember. I have a DeviantArt page where I have tons of stuff posted, and all the new stuff gets posted.
A large
all the time.
amount. Both it was amazing when I started going through it. Was your commercial arts in there, and the comic book art, and books, and it's, wow.
Well, it's fun to share the stuff because a lot of it is. It's funny. A lot of the older stuff that makes me cringe, I realize that people have a real fondness for. You know, it was a child, it's the stuff they grew up on. So I have no problem sharing the really early stuff also, you know, good and bad. And it's fun to get feedback on the stuff that you did like so long ago and realize how many people really followed that stuff because you didn't know back then.
I'm one of those examples because when I found out you were here, first image that popped in my head wasn't Tarzan or John Carter. It was a Marvel card of Sabretooth, I think.
Oh, sure.
And it was one of the first trading cards I'd gotten of superhero, and that image just popped.
The Marvel Masterpiece cards were a complete career-changing job for me. I had been working for Marvel for probably 14 years at that point, and we just decided, because they were doing trading cards, they had the Marvel Universe cards, and then they did the Jim Lee X-Men set. It was a single artist set, and they decided they wanted to do a painted card set. And since I was the guy who was up there doing most of the painted work at the time, naturally they asked me if I would do it, and we just thought it was going to be a really cool idea, you know, and had no idea what it was going to become. And it really just the amount of attention that card set got and still gets. I still sign more of those cards than anything else I've ever done.
Yeah.
It amazes me. It really does.
Okay, thank you very much for your time, Joe. I hope you enjoy the rest of the con, and definitely check out his website. If you're a younger comic guy, this is the man who started painting comics. Check it out.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.